Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and today we have a very, very special show. We are recording live at Disney's Coronado Springs Resort as part of our Disney Dish event for 2017. First, I'd like to say thank you to Tammy and everyone at Storybook Destinations for hosting us today. Yay, Tammy. And thanks to everyone in the live audience that we corralled by promising them a much better entertainment than they actually got, like Steve Buscemi. And welcome. Thank you guys all for coming to this. This is going to be fantastic. Also, let's bring in one Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
It's been a weird couple of days, Len.
It's been some very interesting days. We've talked about a lot of things and yet managed not to get arrested.
So far.
Exactly.
Yes,
there's always Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party.
That's right. We have been eluding Disney security, and so far we're under the wire.
So far, so good.
Yep.
All right, so today we're going to play a game that I like to call What's This, Jim? And here's the premise of this show. Jim has never seen any of the slides that we're about to talk about. What could possibly go wrong here? Here's how we did it. I visit the Disney archives over at the University of Central Florida a couple times a year. And you guys have all heard our series on Unbuilt Disney, right? A lot of the material came from that. And as I was going through that material, there were some things that actually got built that I put aside for later shows. And this is an accumulation of those things, plus some interesting art that we found at the end. And we're going to go through these slides, and what I'm going to do is sort of explain the context of what you're looking at, if it needs explaining, and then ask Jim to explain how it got built or didn't get built from what we did. Does that make sense? Well, it's not a point system, Jim. We're not going to award you points. And if Jim doesn't do well, somebody else comes up and takes his place. We've got Laurel on the PowerPoint. Hello, Laurel. All right, so let's begin with the first slide. This is the card that you got from the very first Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party in 1985. And we found this in the archives, and it was there for a reason. When you visited the party back in 1985, they took your photo, and they gave you a card with your photo in it. This is literally the very first one ever made. How do I know it's the very first one ever made? There's the approval tag from the guy that had to approve it, saying, yes, this is the prototype, and I approve this prototype. So Jim, in 1985, when Disney decided that they needed a Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, what was going through their accumulated minds there?
Well, as hard as it is to believe, there was actually a time when there was a slow season at Disney.
Those were the days.
Yeah, we actually need to convince people to come down here. And December, I mean, you could stand on Main Street and fire a cannon and hit no one. And so it was like the notion of, let's create this artificial reason to get people to come out for the parks. And of course, when you look at Food and Wine, and they've taken this idea and run with it, and now I think there's well, you would know from touring plans, when is the slow period?
There's a couple days around Labor Day in September, and that's about it.
Wow.
The interesting thing from my perspective is that Disney's got so good about filling in available gaps. From their perspective, there are only 365 days in a year, and they know what the busy ones are. So they're systematically going through the calendar every day and saying, okay, 3 days in March, we need something. You know, we'll extend Flower and Garden, or we'll do Festival of the Arts. And they keep filling in these dates over and over again just to put things in. So when did it first start getting big? So 1985 was the first one, and we all know what it is today.
Mickey's Very Merry back in the day was not about getting people to vacation at the resort. It was about getting locals to come to the park. Hey, it's quiet. The crowds are low, and you'll get cookies and pay a whole $12. I think that's the thing that kind of...
The $12?
The $12. And to have the park private.
Let's go on to the next slide. Yeah. This is the schedule for the very first New Year's Eve celebration in Walt Disney World from 1971. This is the thing that they handed out to you to tell you what was going on. The thing that I find amazing about this is the complete and utter lack of entertainment. They've got a couple of bands, but it's basically the stuff that's going on in Frontierland. This is New Year's Eve 1971 going into 1972. And look at the park hours. So I think it goes to like 9 o'clock most nights. I mean, now, of course, it's the week between Christmas and New Year is the busiest week of the year. Clearly, from that schedule, it was not the busiest time of the year. When did New Year's Eve start to become super popular in Walt Disney World? Because now we've got, not only do we have fireworks on New Year's Eve, we have to go through all of the fireworks the day before on the 30th. And has everyone's seen the fireworks, right? The fireworks are in 360 degrees. They fire shells now that count down from 10, 9, 8 in the shape of the numbers. It's incredibly crazy. This was not that. This was a very low-key event. Let's flip to the next slide.
Take a look at December 24th and December 25th. And notice the week beforehand, the park is open 9 to 9, but on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, the park is open 9 to 6 and then 10 to 6. The notion was...
There would be revolts today.
Well, no. It's actually, this tells you a lot about Disney company management at that period. The notion of we want our cast members to go home on the holiday and have time with their families. I mean, because we like and respect you.
And now it's like, when you can see your kids, we're going to dress them up as dwarves. You can visit them on your break in Fantasyland.
There we go.
You got 10 minutes, Steve. Go ahead.
There you go.
So again, not a whole lot of entertainment here. It's definitely not the spectacle that it was. So this is interesting. This is a internal memo from Disney talking about the 1985 Christmas event and how much food they served. And so I tried to put this into 2016 attendance numbers. But basically what they're saying is they served about 45,000 pounds of hamburgers in 1985. In 2017 numbers, or 2016 numbers, it would have been 117,000 pounds of hamburgers the week of Christmas. But that's a tremendous amount of food. And think about the diversity of the food that they're serving now. This isn't just the Magic Kingdom anymore.
No.
They've got 4 parks. They've got all the different resorts. This is just for the Magic Kingdom. But if you think about how much attendance has grown since then, they're probably serving somewhere close to 150,000 pounds of hamburgers. 20,000 pounds of hamburgers, 2 or 3 ounces each, maybe 4. It's an incredible amount of food. Let's go to the next one. This is one of those things that we found that never actually happened. It's a report in one of the internal memos, in one of the internal newsletters about how Disney had sent off a guy to Japan to learn how to program industrial robots. And he was going to bring the industrial robot technology back to Epcot and do it in a plate balancing exhibit. This never happened, did it?
Well, what's weird about this is this was going to be not only at Epcot, it was also going to be at Tomorrowland at Disneyland. In fact, this was the robot show that was going to be replacing Carousel Progress. Or at that point, it was America Sings. Under one set of dressing, this was one of the acts for Plecto's Intergalactic Review show.
Oh, really? I mean, it was that much later?
Yeah. Well, no. They had this amazing piece of technology, and it was like, where do we put this in? Because this isn't a whole show. This is a wonderfully entertaining 2 and 3 minutes in some other show.
Right, but it's not a show in and of itself.
No, if you remember Communicore.
That's where I thought it was going to go.
Well, that was the thing. These are the classically sharp Japanese swords that these tops are balancing on. So just the envelope of protection, because again, it's just sort of what could go wrong? These are robots with swords, all right? It's like, woo!
We're going to program some industrial robots with swords.
Yeah.
The guests will love it.
This is a Michael Crichton move, book waiting to happen, So in that case, it was like, okay, so where in Communicore would this have gone? Who would have sponsored it? Obviously, in this case, we're talking Toshiba. Yeah. But often as not, Disney would be in negotiations with somebody and then have to go to one of its partners in Communicore and go, hey, we're thinking of bringing in Toshiba. And it's like, no, they're our direct competition.
Yeah.
We don't want them in. And I've actually read about this show being part of the robot review for Disneyland and Tomorrowland.
The thing that I love about this particular thing is that back in the 80s, Disney thought that industrial robots spinning tops would be good family entertainment in Epcot. And to me, that's the funniest thing. All right, we'll go to the next one. This is a test printing in different colors of what was going to be a Disney credit card that you could carry around the resort with you. This is, again, back in the 80s as well. This predates the Key to the World card, and it predates, obviously, Magic Bands. So the test printings, the different colors are different colors that they thought would appeal to people on it and in different tones. And this is sort of the flyer that the card came in. What was Disney thinking with getting into credit cards in the 80s?
Basically, that they could make lots and lots of money, Len.
Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, in much the same way as we live in a world with the Magic Band now, where think about how many things you buy casually here without even thinking about it. Because, ooh, I'm wearing my Magic Band. Dink, I get a plush, or I get a Coke, or I get a churro. And you get home and look at the bill. Disney knew from its own research that when people were pulling out their wallets and using cash, as the amount of cash dwindled, they didn't buy quite as much. On the other hand, to have a fun Disney credit card in your little collectible envelope that you could pull out, and it's like, oh, look, Mickey's on it, and I can get anything. They really wanted this to fly. And in the end, I want to say they did a couple of on-site tests of it, and what they found from higher up is like, well, why are we just confining this to the park? Can't we have a really for real Disney credit card?
Right. So this was sort of like the in-between Magic Bands and the Disney credit cards.
There we go.
So this actually never went forward. I found this in the archives of one of Disney's lawyers, so apparently never got past that.
But it tells you how far along.
Oh yeah, they're doing test printings. I mean, clearly they've got to the point where when you open these up, it actually has the terms and conditions for the credit card in it with the interest rate and everything like that in it.
Yes, Goofy the leg breaker will come and find you if you don't.
It's a Scrooge McDuck, thank you. But all right,
sorry.
All right, let's go to the next one. I mentioned that I was going through the archives of one of Disney's lawyers, and so he was responsible for contracts with subcontractors. Disney would come up with a project, and they would say, okay, we need an electrician, we need a building contractor, we need plumbing, we need landscaping and whatnot. And he was the guy that was responsible for negotiating all the contracts and making sure all the appropriate language was in each of the contracts. And in this one, standard boilerplate around landscaping, you've got to adhere to these standards, you've got to adhere to those standards, you've got to work during these hours. But here was the interesting thing. This is 1986. Notice at the top what it mentions. It's a quote to get landscaping estimates for a Brazilian pavilion, which they never built. So it's Las Ramblas, which is technically in Barcelona, but there's another one in Brazil. It's the street section. It basically describing how it's all going to work. So you've got Brazil, you've got the landscaping, and you've got a street scene, but also there are restaurants mentioned in there as well. So Jim, it never got built.
Yeah, but there was, it gets so funny. We lost Exitensio this year.
Right.
And one of my favorite interviews with X, he was talking about he said, the most beautiful model we made for a pavilion was the Brazil pavilion. There's one whole section of it that there was this amazing greenhouse in this beautiful sort of sculpted style. And a key to it was the greenery, which was why right up front, it's all about the landscape here.
Right.
But ultimately, it all came down to Disney didn't want to spend its own money, especially in '86, because we're 2 years into the Michael Eisner era at that point. You want to put a pavilion in World Showcase, and I'm showing that isn't pushing the needle. We need rides in here. We need attractions. And
there's actually no ride mentioned in this.
No, it was going to be wonderful, beautiful walk through greenery, and Michael's like, I need a Body Wars. Give me Leonard Nimoy.
So once I found this contract, I started asking around to Imagineers that we know, Imagineers that worked back in the 80s, and I was like, well, what kind of background do you have on this? You obviously got to the point where you're asking people for estimates on landscaping. It's not like this is a hypothetical.
No.
What happened? And he said, we've actually come close 3 times to building a Brazil pavilion. It's like basically once a decade, somebody brings it back and does a twist on it as their own personal project. And it still hasn't been built. But the thing that he said was the basic concept of Brazil is the same. Like they might change out the ride concept or a restaurant concept, but the scheme of Brazil is the same. So when it gets built eventually, it will be the same thing that was done back in the 80s. All right, on to the next one. This I like to call the mystery of Port St. Jacques. So how many people have stayed at Port Orleans Riverside? How many different sections are there in Port Orleans Riverside? 2. Name them. Magnolia Bend, Alligator Bayou. Okay. So everyone thinks there are 2 sections in Port Orleans Riverside. Back when it was called Dixie Landings, there were supposed to be 3 sections. The section that's missing is this thing called Port St. Jacques, and that's all we know about it. So it appears in every one of the proposals in this lawyer's folder. It was supposed to be the first set of buildings built somewhere between Alligator Bayou and the Magnolia Bend section. You can see, right, at phase 1, right? They have estimates for what the guest rooms were supposed to look like. They have a project plan that says, here's how we're going to build the rooms, here's the dates on which we're going to build the rooms, here's how we're going to integrate the landscaping in the transition area between Port St. Jacques and Alligator Bayou. A detailed project plan, it's literally this big. It never gets built. I've asked around about this for every Imagineer I know, and no one knows what happened to it. Let's go on to the next slide. Here's the thing in the project plan that says when it's going to get built. So this was the master project plan from 1989, so 3 years before the thing was supposed to be built. They had every single day for the next 3 years mapped out, saying this is what we're going to do on this day, this is who's going to do it, this is how we manage the transitions. And Port St. Jacques is literally the first thing that's supposed to get built. It never gets built. No one knows what happened to it. It's the most amazing mystery.
Basically what happened was that summer is when the Gulf War starts.
Oh, right. Okay.
If you look at that period, Eisner announces things like the Mediterranean Resort and Buffalo Junction. They were in this period of like, look, we have to retract. With the Gulf War going on, we don't have as many visitors. And the 1-2 punch, I mean, the war starts in July, ends in February, but there's a recession that starts in August that lasts for another 16 months. And Disney kind of retracted during that period. So we were already committed to building all 3 phases of the All-Star. Okay. So the notion of let's go a little bit modest with what we're doing for Dixie Landing. So rather than 3 phases, let's just do 2
things.
And we will have the land left to expand. In fact, the irony is that the area for Port St. Jacques is still there.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I didn't know what happened to it.
No, as all things with Disney, that's temporarily off the table.
Yes,
Here
for the
we
last
are, 25 years later,
yeah, exactly.
Still temporary.
So. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so this group comes from a former Imagineer of Disney. This next up, go ahead. This is concept art for a Baby Herman ride that was supposed to be built in Toontown. So Baby Herman from the...
Baby Herman's Runaway Baby Buggy Ride, yep.
So we had talked about it before, but I didn't know the concept art existed till I actually found it in the archives. This is not the Mickey Mouse that I am used to, James?
No.
So Baby Herman is the cigar-smoking baby in the Roger Rabbit films. Okay.
And in fact, you make your way through the queue and you eventually go by Baby Herman's dressing room. And Baby Herman is balking at doing his own stunts for the short they're shooting now. So you come around the corner and you're now recruited to be his stuntman.
This is in Toontown.
Actually, this was going to be off of Sunset Boulevard.
Oh, that makes sense with the next slides. Okay, go ahead, good. Okay.
Anyway.
This is so good that Jim is seeing these for the first time. So now I understand what's going on here. All right.
Okay. What I loved about this ride is you literally went through makeup. They gave you a baby bonnet that you Velcroed on, you got in your baby carriage, and you rolled through the attraction. I mean, this is just one of the scenes. In fact, one of my favorite is they had a 9-foot nurse with a 5-foot-long hypodermic needle who just sort of wheeled on it. It's time for your shot! And you're rolling through the attraction. But one of the reasons they were desperate to build this was one of the very first places they were going to do image capture. And the notion that there you are in your baby buggy with your bonnet, they thought they'd sell thousands of pictures every day.
Oh, so onboard ride photos.
Yep.
I think there's one more piece of concept art here. So what's going on here with these characters?
Well, you rolling through all areas of the hospital, and this is the waiting room. These are the folks waiting in the emergency room to get taken care of, and with dealing with their various injuries, waiting to see the doctor.
So why didn't this get built?
Steven Spielberg made a movie for Disney called Arachnophobia.
I remember it, yeah.
Okay, they actually branded it as a thrillamedy. The notion it was a thriller and a comedy. Disney, the previous summer, had been allowed to put the new Roger Rabbit cartoon in front of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and this movie then made over $100 million. The notion was, well, okay, here's the second one, and I'm making a movie for Disney, so we're going to put the Roger Rabbit short in front of my movie.
Right, sure.
Well, but this is also the same summer that Disney is releasing Dick Tracy, and Jeffrey Katzenberg is getting very, very nervous because Warren Beatty did not deliver the fun family comedy that,
it was supposed to be a comedy?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what the thing. This was supposed to be. Yeah, that he delivered an art film with Madonna. So in the end, Katzenberg was like, nothing personal, Steven, but we're going to put the new Roger Rabbit short in front of Dick Tracy. Spielberg was like, okay, you're going to play that way? And it's like, fine. And what he did was the very next summer, the folks here in Florida in the old animation studio were working on a brand new Roger Rabbit short. Spielberg lets them get basically 2/3 of the way into animation and then sort of raises his hands, I don't like it, shut it down.
Wow.
At that point, the Roger Rabbit sequel, Toon Platoon, went off track, and because that fell off the table, that meant everything, whether it was Toontown Transit, which was going to be sort of the next generation of Star Wars,
right.
That fell off the table, and Baby Herman was a casualty as well.
All right, go to the next slide. So what you just said about it going in the studios makes complete sense now because of this slide. So this was a test of the old Magic of Disney animation tour back in the studios. And you guys recognize the characters as Walter Cronkite and Robin Williams. But apparently the idea here wasn't that they were going to be on television screens. The idea was that you were going to walk through windows, sort of like you're riding through the grand ballroom scene of a Haunted Mansion, and their images would be projected on to the windows behind you to make it look like that they were there. So what they're testing here is, and this is a cell, this is very early, mid-1980s technology, they're testing the projection of Robin and Walter onto the windows of the animation facility to see how realistic it looks. And that's what the original animation tour was supposed to be, not TVs, but actually super advanced technology where they throw you up in that. If you go to the next slide, I think you can see it even better. This is how they're testing fitting Walter and Robin on an animator's desk to see how the angles would work. Like as you're walking by it, do you have to be in a certain space for it to look good? Or would it look good if you walked from end to end very, very fast? And I've never heard of this before. I haven't seen any of this.
Yeah. As the budget began to spiral, the cost of building the studio kept creeping higher and higher and higher. It just defaulted to, it's cheaper to use monitors. And we need to get this open. That Universal,
it was opening at the same time.
The key thing was that Disney had to get its production studio, it's open ahead of Universal. So it's like, just go with the fast and easy and let's get open.
So where I found this box in was with a box of other stuff related to computer animation. So they were on VHS cassette, and it was samples of video technology from different companies around the country who were promising the latest and greatest in virtual reality, whatever that meant in the 1980s. But every one of them was basically a demo of how these companies could do this. So I don't think it worked out. Yeah. But that's what they were going for on this particular ride. All right, let's go to the next one. We're switching over to the Magic Kingdom. Does anyone know what this is? James?
Submarine voyage, right?
No, James. So this comes from a folder called Walt Disney World Master Plan 1968, which we'll see a little bit later on. This is concept art for the original pool for the Polynesian Resort. Okay. You'll notice the diving bell in the foreground. You notice how deep it is as well.
If you remember the art that was done during that period, it wasn't the Polynesian village. It was that weird modern Honolulu type design.
Go to the next slide. Go one more. That one, James?
Yeah.
This was the Polynesian. This was what it was supposed to look like in 1968. Remember, the thing opened in 71. At some point, there was, I think, James, an architect who didn't get any sleep for like 6 months as they said, you know what, this tower thing's not going to work. So what happened here?
Disney keeps circling back on this idea. Disney initially didn't really want to be in the hotel business.
Oh, no, they're saying with this, we're partnering with U.S. Steel and all this stuff. And
so the notion was that U.S. Steel wanted to build, quote unquote, a showcase building. So when you look at that structure there, that sort of modern Honolulu type structure, that's the conceit, that you would be sliding the rooms into that. But at the same time, to sell that it is, in fact, the Polynesian, the low longhouses were built. You could stay in the super sophisticated hotel, modern Honolulu, or you could have the South Seas Adventure thing. And in the end, the famous story with U.S. Steel was that Dick Nunes going to them, it's like, we're going to make October. Oh, absolutely. Not of 1971.
It's not October that's the problem. It's the 71 that's the problem, yes.
And in the end, it's like, okay, we can't do two giant towers. We can't do a contemporary and the Polynesian. And so they defaulted to the longhouse model.
Because it was cheaper to build.
It was cheaper to build.
The interesting thing is this document that comes out, it's sort of like a full-color brochure that Disney was walking around to people who were buying corporate bonds, but also to the Florida government to say, look what we're trying to build here. And they're going for tax breaks and things like that on it. This is what they were envisioning the Polynesian to be.
But when you look at the model of that pool,
go back to the pool for a second. I would swim in that pool. That's a nice pool.
You would die in that pool.
Oh, yeah. This puts the beach club pool to Stormalong Bay to shame. This is fantastic. All right, let's go forward a little bit.
Oh.
All right, so this is the concept art for the Persian Hotel. Yeah. And this is another thing that they were selling to, not only to investors, but to governments, that, we're going to build this massive hotel. I've seen concept art for this once or twice before, but I haven't seen this particular drawing of it before. Where was this going to go?
The perimeter road around the Magic Kingdom. If you're driving past the Contemporary and Bay Lake Towers, you continue around the turn, this would have been at the outermost edge of Bay Lake. I just recently found out that one of the things that actually killed this resort was the Arab oil embargo.
The oil embargo was, what, 73, 74?
73, 74.
Okay.
So remember, originally the plan was that the Thai was going to be built. In fact, right behind that was supposed to be the Polynesian. And it turned out, because Americans were so furious And so here you are proposing a resort with,
Oh, right, because you had started like in 1967 with the Six-Day War, and so basically this was a decade of conflict in the Middle East. Let's
Yeah.
not build anything.
That's the saddest part, that if they had actually built this,
Right.
this would have been...
Oh, the region's much calmer now, Jim. It's just absolutely fine.
Thinking from the Disney point of view, this would have been where you went for the Agrabah breakfast experience.
Right, that would have fit in. This is actually a photo of the model itself, and I've never seen a photo of the model before, but this was how it was supposed to look.
It was beautiful, and what was particularly fascinating...
There's the monorail track in the back, too.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, the way the monorail track was laid out initially, the tie was relatively easy. In fact, when they defaulted to building the Grand Floridian, they could just build the station because they already had the track running by. This was actually going to necessitate rerouting the monorail.
Really?
Yeah. Well, again, the contemporary immediately dog legs over to the...
Oh, right, yeah, it's the Magic Kingdom.
And you'd have to have created a loop that went up and came back for the...
Oh, past Space Mountain and then coming back. You mentioned the development around Bay Lake. Have you seen the latest land use plan for the Magic Kingdom?
Oh.
So remember we had talked about the area between the TTC and the Contemporary where it's all blank land. It's sort of to the left of where Wilderness Lodge is, or sort of to the west of where Wilderness Lodge is, and that originally the land wasn't suitable for development.
Yeah.
So here's the interesting thing. In the latest land use plan, that is now suitable for development, which means they could put a resort there.
Okay.
First time in 40 years.
They have to have come up with a new construction technique because literally every 10 years they'd go in and knock test pilings in that area, and they would just disappear. They would knock them in the ground, and there was just no way they could build on top of that spot. But that's
that's
Mediterranean?
that's prime real estate right there
wow.
between the TTC. So what I'm waiting for is to see construction posts going up between the TTC and the Contemporary. That's when you know something will happen. Because Disney's alluded to another Magic Kingdom resort.
Realistically, can they put another monorail station in there?
You could walk to the TTC.
Well, this is true, but if you're staying in a Magic Kingdom area resort, do you really want to walk to the TTC?
Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to get there.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on one more. This is the model of the Venetian hotel that they were supposed to build as well. So I've never seen this photo before.
You are breaking my heart here.
But this isn't a photo, by the way. This is the model. This is a photo of the model that they built.
That was the conceit of this hotel, that they had this beautiful glass skylight, and all of the rooms faced down into this wonderful plaza inside the building.
Yeah.
There were gondolas that went through the canal space all around that. Oh, it was beautiful, and they designed it. They were ready to go, and they went over and did the test pilings. And the irony is, it's a water resort. It was supposed
Venice is a water resort.
It's like it wouldn't have stayed above the water.
What do you think is the theme that they're looking at that is most likely to get built for the Magic Kingdom resorts if they build one?
One of the things that was discussed was the Magic Kingdom suites. You get to stay where Mickey stays. From the doorknob on in, it's a completely tuned space. The real giveaway of this spot, even with a new construction technique, it's going to be a problematic construction site. So I would bet you're going to see a relatively small resort built in this spot.
Okay. No 15-story tower like we're seeing here.
No. One of the reasons they've always wanted to build in this spot is it has second to none the most amazing view straight into the castle, straight onto the park. So I would bet you they'll go small, they'll go boutique, and it will be highly themed. So look for something along the lines of Magic Kingdom suites.
We'll start looking for construction equipment happening over there by the monorail. All right, let's go to the next one.
And this is the inside of the Asia Hotel.
How did you? I didn't think you'd seen this one before. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
Has anyone else seen this? I feel bad. All right, one other person. All right, well, you don't count, but okay. The professionals aren't allowed. Yeah, so this is the inside of the Thai Hotel.
Yep.
So it looks like some sort of supper club. You see people dancing.
Yeah. This was a relatively small hotel, though.
Yeah,
right?
it was very small. In fact, the concept art for this isn't very detailed at all. This was as good as it got. All right, let's go to the next one. We've talked about this before, but this is what they were proposing to build in the Magic Kingdom, and it included the Western River Expedition and also the Thunder Mesa stuff. So this is the view looking at it. So basically, from the end of Liberty Square, the thing that jumps out at me is the colors and the basic landscaping of Thunder Mesa are there, and you can see the elements of Tom Sawyer Island in the raft. That got built. And you even see the sort of the waterfall on the right-hand side of Thunder Mesa, which, let's call it Splash Mountain, even though Splash Mountain wasn't a thing at the time. But the rest of this doesn't get built. And the Western River Expedition doesn't get built. Why not?
My then wife, Michelle, now Valladolid, and I spent a wonderful afternoon at Mark and Alice Davis's house. And Mark was the key designer on this thing. And he took all of his rough drafts home. Disney kept the finished art, but he took the rough drafts home.
Yes.
Eventually, he started pulling out the stuff for Thunder Mesa and the Western River Expedition. And the problem was that all of the Indians were sort of the Indians out of Peter Pan.
Oh, okay. So caricatures of Native Americans.
To Mark's way of thinking, look, I caricatured the cowboys. They look just as ridiculous. And I'm caricaturing the Indians, so it's all in innocent fun. But in this exact same window of time is when Wounded Knee happens.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Native Americans are declaring their rights and pushing back after years of prejudice and discussing sensitivities. And here's Disney looking at this attraction that's filled with giant cartoon Indians with little squinty eyes and big noses that are drinking and have papooses on their back.
Right.
And it's just like...
Okay, that's not going to fly.
No. Then Mark was the good soldier. They said, Mark, well, you have to address this and you got to go and redesign it. And he made one more pass where basically he tried taking out all of the Native Americans and he tried making them noble versus the silly cowboys. And the attraction basically fell apart.
Yeah, you can't play part serious, part comedy
Yeah.
in the same ride. It works kind of in the Haunted Mansion because it's two separate rides
Yeah.
linked together, but in one attraction, it's difficult.
And never mind, the whole notion was that one of the reasons they wanted to build Western River here in Florida is that when Disney was doing this research for Walt Disney World, of course, they arced out, 100 miles away from Orlando, and what are we dealing with? And it's like, well, Tampa has the Gasparilla Festival, which celebrates pirates, and it's like, well, then it doesn't make any sense to do Pirates of the Caribbean here. I mean, that's how they talk themselves out of it. It's like, well, Tampa does pirates. We want to create special reasons to come to Florida. And given that Florida is so far from the American West, wouldn't it be interesting for these folks if we build a Pirates-like ride, but with a Western theme? And honestly, from October 1st, 1971, the people were marching into guest relations. And it's like, this park is wonderful, but where's Pirates? And that's why they fast-tracked Pirates.
And the answer wasn't Tampa.
There we go.
Okay, all right, let's go to the next one. Do you know what this is, James?
Oh, you are breaking my heart here.
Wait, hold on. Does anyone know what this is? Pirates of the Caribbean. It is not Pirates of the Caribbean. Go ahead.
No, this is Treasure Island.
It is Treasure Island.
I want to say that's the Hispaniola.
Where was it going to go?
It was going to be built out on Discovery Island.
Right.
You were going to have a Disney Treasure Island experience. In fact, the best part of this, I hope you have art of it, of Ben Gunn's cave.
No, this is the only piece I found. So.
Okay, because the gimmick was that you found the wreck of the ship that Ben Gunn, how he got stuck on the island, and eventually as you wandered around, you found the cave with the treasure that Long John Silver was after. And on the opposite shore, there was water separating you from the treasure, and there was this animatronic of Ben Gunn like, oh, I'm here at the gold, and it's just sort of like, okay, that's disturbing. Honestly, there were souvenir maps that were published that they allowed you to go out to the Treasure Island construction site. It's like, come back in 3 years, we're going to have some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Honestly, people just didn't respond to it the way Disney expected. That's why they defaulted to Discovery Island Bird Sanctuary.
You want to talk about like a small event space that you could rent out for parties? I mean, this would have been the thing.
They've made so many different endless runs at trying to figure out how to turn this into something that people would want to go to.
Yeah.
There was
I'm surprised they didn't revisit it during Pirates of the Caribbean.
I'm honestly surprised myself, but I've seen the documentation for the Lost attraction, the keying off of the ABC series.
Right. All in the same spot of land, right? All on Discovery Island. Yeah.
In fact, I remember talking with the game developers on Myst, and they were like, absolutely, we were working with Disney to create a walk-around version of the game, but in the end, it just... The transportation was a concern.
Yeah. And then gameplay is always a concern.
And honestly, capacity. It has so little capacity. And this island, which back when Walt was seeking out the land for Disney World in '64, was doing the flyovers. This is what sealed the deal.
Yeah, they actually mentioned this. It's like there's a note on the paper that has this. It was, this is one of Walt's.
Yeah.
And that's the entire, and then apparently it was good enough for everybody.
Yeah. At that time, it was called Raz Island, but Walt was flying over in the Gulf Stream that the company owned, and it was like, oh, cool, it's got an island. We got to buy this chunk of land.
They actually mentioned the Gulf Stream, and that he was in the Gulf Stream when they did it. In fact, the lawyer has the handwritten notes that he took on the flight in the Gulf Stream with Walt saying, okay, here's what we're going to do, essentially sketching it out.
You are killing me.
Oh, it's great stuff. All right, guys, go to the next one. All right, so this one's kind of strange. So I'm going through this, and this is a note to an executive in Disney from the mayor of Moscow saying, we want to build a Disneyland, but in Moscow. Jim?
Honestly,
This is what, 1973? Is that what this is? 75? We were not getting along with Russia back then? This is sort of an unusual request, I would say?
it doesn't much matter that the United States wasn't getting along. I spent a couple of days in the Disney archive back in the early 90s, and
They let you in the actual archive?
well, back in the day, Dave Smith.
Okay, it was Dave. All right, fair enough. Okay.
This came up as a conversation. Just said, "Wait a minute," and came out with a file folder that had to be 5 and 6 inches thick.
Yeah.
They were individual states. They were countries. Everybody wanted a Disneyland.
Yeah.
And so this is just one of literally hundreds of proposals. Some of them quite elaborate, where it's, this is the piece of land and we'll give it to you for free.
Yeah, well,
And-
we talked about the Australia thing
yeah.
for the 2000 Olympics, yeah.
And Disney did not, in fact, dismiss all of these. They took them quite seriously. They'd approach and
Yeah, this one it says, hey, we'll send Buzz out. I mean, it basically says, well, let's talk about it, how we would move forward on this. Spoiler alert, it never got built.
I got to interview Admiral Joe Potter. There was this moment where we were talking about Euro Disneyland, and I had my recorder in front of me, and he leaned in and was like, "Turn it off." And he said, "Look, I could have told those dumb bastards not to build in that beet field in France. Do you think we didn't go there?"
I have a story. All right, so I was with you, and I won't mention your name out loud because we're recording it.
Yep.
With a gentleman who was part of the land search for Euro Disneyland at dinner. So I went to Blue Zoo a couple weeks ago. Had a lovely dinner there. If you haven't been to Blue Zoo, they've really upped their game recently. But this gentleman happened to be part of the land search for Euro Disneyland. And he said, in no uncertain terms, we did 3 or 4 years of research. We did all of the economic analysis. We did all of the climactic analysis, to make sure the weather and everything. And we absolutely all agreed that Barcelona was the perfect spot for Euro Disneyland. And so my next question, obviously, is what happened? And he said, what happened was we went on a trip with the senior executives and their families and their wives to check the different sites, Barcelona, Paris, and everybody liked Paris better. So they built it in Paris.
Well, I just add another little chunk of the puzzle here. Roy E. Disney, Walt's nephew, told me that Spain just wouldn't bend for Disney. They knew they were the best site. They knew they had the best culture. They already had a tourism base.
Warm weather. I mean, yeah.
And it's why do we need to give you concessions? We're the ideal site. Where the French came at Disney with we will give
You're saying
you
the French surrendered? Is that what you're saying, James?
Oh, land.
I'll show myself out. Thank you.
No, it was better financial terms and, offering it. So it was like the French came at them with, to quote Roy, with the better scheme. You'll make so much money here because we'll give you better terms. And that's how we ended up in the frosty, freezy beet field.
I was going to say, I've been in Disneyland Paris in the fall, and it makes me think of Barcelona. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, everything we've taken at this point, I'm happy to repost photos of, but from this point on, no photos, please. Here's why. You've never seen this art before. It comes from the archives, but the archives aren't sure about who owns the art, and I will tell you the story. Jim mentioned earlier that you went to visit Mark and Alice Davis, and they happened to have some concept art in their house. I was going through the Buzz Price archives, and I was looking at Buzz's photos. Buzz apparently had, for insurance purposes, taken pictures of the art on his walls. Some of the art is clearly Disney art. It's from the artist Herb Ryman, who did all of the Epcot concept art that you're familiar with. He had done art for Disney going back into the 40s. Apparently, Buzz has the originals of a lot of this art. This is stuff that you've never seen before. The archives aren't sure who actually owns the copyright to it. Please don't post photos of this online. And you'll see that this is actually Buzz's insurance photos because I've tried to crop some of these images out, but you'll see the frames in some of them. But let's go through this, Jim, and see. Go ahead. Concept art from Liberty Square.
Yeah, this was supposed to be part of the entertainment.
I'm sorry, was this the Hunger Games park that we were?
the whole notion of colonial America. And then these were people who had committed crimes, and they would march them out into the stocks, and they would then walk out with a basket of tomatoes. And you would be...
It's an upsell. I'm Jim. I mean, the tomatoes would cost $5.
There
But,
we go.
All right, go
So
ahead.
here you
All
are
right.
wailing on the cast members with the rotten fruit and vegetables. And it's just sort of
But the
like,
important thing is, Jim, that they're in show business, I think. So that's
God, yes.
all right. Let's go on. Okay.
I love this.
You've never seen this, have you? Does anyone know what this is? It's the earliest known rendering of Main Street. This is from 1950. So this is before Walt had actually even come up with the map of Disneyland. It's 3 years before he goes out to investors.
Well, it's better than that, Len. It's the Disneyland that was going to be built across from the Disney Studios in Burbank. This is the one that the Burbank City Council rejected because, quote unquote, we don't want your cheap carny thing coming in here and sailors falling in the river.
All right, cool. Let's go into the next one. This is another rendering of Main Street. This is the other side of Main Street.
Yeah.
This is the sort of interesting part about it. We've never seen these. I've looked online. These photos don't exist. Buzz Price somehow acquired this art. It's in his house. That's why we can't take pictures of it. But again, you see, I mean, this is Main Street. This is identifiable to us. This is 5 years before the thing gets built and before it opens.
Yeah.
But he has a general idea of what it is.
When it came time to do the land search, Walt went to him and said, you need to find chunks of land for what I want to do. Well, what is it you want to do? Well,
Yeah.
look at this artwork. Take it home. Study it. It's like,
He never said bring it back,
no,
right?
there you
Okay.
go.
So the previous slide showed the Penny Arcade and the theater. This one shows the restaurant. So these are all concepts that we still have in basically every main street that Disney's ever built, right? Some sort of shopping, guest services, and restaurant stuff. This is, again, 5 years before he builds Disneyland.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead one more. I had this conversation with the guys at UCF, the archive people. So they're trying to build a library of the history of theme park development, not only in Florida, but in the United States. And obviously they're focusing on Disney.
Yeah.
You know, they don't specialize in Disney. And I was trying to explain the significance of some of the things that they have in their collection, like trying to link things together. Like, so all of these slides, by the way, they didn't know who the artist was. But clearly it's Herb Ryman, and you can see based on the other stuff that they have in there. But what they were saying was, okay, we've got Buzz Price's stuff, we've got a couple of attorneys, but their question was, who else? Whom among the Disney, you know, the people who work for Disney these days has this kind of a collection? And so the first thing that came to mind was Joe Rohde.
Yeah. Or Tony Baxter.
Or Tony Baxter, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the pitch to make.
But again, you have to persuade them to give this stuff up. And
See, I was thinking robbery, but your thing is, I guess, much more subtle. Okay.
yeah. So
All right, let's go to the next one. Let me ask, have you seen this before?
I've seen art from this section, but
Have
not
you seen this?
Yeah, this is from Liberty Street, the precursor of Liberty Square. This was supposed to be built at Disneyland out behind Main Street, between Main Street and Tomorrowland. And what's significant about it, the Silver Shop, is this was a land that was being built on the back of Disney's Johnny Tremaine movie. So this wasn't just
Yeah.
a silver shop, this was Paul Revere's silver shop. This is where Johnny, in the course of the story, winds up handling a mold badly and burning his hand. And because he can't now do the fine silverwork, he ends up shooting British people.
Sure.
Well, it's a
it
logical
was
jump.
back in the 1700s, that's what you did.
That's right.
Let's go on one more. There's your forge.
Yeah. This actually was one of the very first things as you came off of Town Plaza in Main Street. You walked into the section. This was one of the things that helped sell you on the notion that you've entered America's colonial period. You have the forge and could actually look in at the blacksmith working. And it really had some very impressive ideas.
The thing that I like about this is it shows that on Main Street, the idea was that people or craftsmen would be doing their work in front of you in the theme park. And to this day, I mean, you can still see some of that. Has anyone seen the glass blowing on Main Street? They're still doing this, it's the same idea, right? And I think that's actually a charming addition to Main Street to see the glass blowing.
Is this where I bring up the Hollywood Maxwell lingerie store that's on Main Street? Or did we really want to see them, come with me, lady, we're going to fit you?
Maybe not in that voice, but I don't know why the idea never worked, but okay.
Never.
All right, fair enough. Let's go to the next one. James?
Oh, wow.
Anyone?
But this is early Pirates, isn't it?
It's concept art for the Blue
Blue
Bayou
Bayou,
restaurant.
yeah, inside. Yeah.
I've never seen this.
Really?
I mean, I've seen the Blue Bayou, but not this particular piece of concept art.
What I love, honestly, about Pirates is if you take a look at that attraction, we all look at it today and like, oh, this is wonderful and what great epic storytelling and that sort of thing. And the reality, it was so slapped together.
It's like the theme park version of Casablanca. Somehow it all worked, right?
Yeah,
It's
I mean, the whole notion of, well, we got to move the show building outside because it's now no longer a walkthrough, and we have this tiny show building, and what the hell do we put in here? And it's like, okay, the boats go through, and what do? They go by. They go by a restaurant. Okay, sure, all right, build that.
All right, let's go to the next one. James?
I want to say that's the bandstand.
It is. It's the bandstand on Main Street. This was the
Okay.
concept art for it.
Cool.
So Disneyland used to do like date nights, right? And dances. And that was how they would bring people in on like Fridays and Saturday nights.
This is where the Osmonds made their debut.
Really?
Well, the dad wanted the kids to be in show business, and it was just not cutting it. And so one Sunday, he marches his kids, buys admission to Disneyland. This is at the point where Donnie isn't even old enough to perform. So it's the four older Osmond brothers, and brings them all in matching blazers, and the band said, oh, look at the cute kids. Hey, bring the cute kids up and say, hey, the cute kids sing. And it's like, and the cute kids sing, and it's like, oh, wow, would you want to perform here at Disneyland? And they got a gig performing at Disneyland. And
I didn't know this.
this is how we wound up with Donnie and Marie.
And that's how they ended up in Las Vegas.
Well,
All
you
right.
know.
All right, let's go to the next one.
Okay.
I couldn't figure out this building. This is clearly the end of Main Street, and it's a cottage. And you can see on either side the scale of the buildings indicate this isn't a residential thing. What was this? Any idea?
This went through a number of hands. This was a restaurant at the edge of town square. Yeah. To orientate you, directly to the right here would have been the Main Street Opera House, Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln.
Oh, so
To
okay.
the
I was thinking it was
left
the
is-
other end of Main Street.
No,
okay,
this
all right.
is right there off of the plaza.
So right when you get into the park.
It was one of the places where Walt loved to have breakfast because he could just sort of sit there in a corner in his grubby shirt and his bad hat and drink coffee and watch all the people walk into his park.
I'm trying to figure out why Buzz thought this was a significant piece of art, or maybe he just liked the way it looked.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to the next one. All right, so this never got built either, but it's a massive Christmas tree. And this was when, a couple years after Disneyland had been built, Walt had seen a need to increase attendance. So everyone had gone, and then attendance had started to drop a little bit. Walt realized that he needed something else to bring people in, especially during the slow season, which was the holidays. So the idea was we build a holiday park. And you can see in the lower right-hand corner, it actually says holiday park, and it's 50 or 75 foot tall Christmas tree.
But again, the whole notion was it's a show-busy Disney tree. And what's significant about it is if you look at the very base of the tree, there are these elaborate models, these elaborate little show scenes. And it's the 12 Days of Christmas. As you walk around the tree, there are these individual show scenes of 12 Lords of Leaping and 9 Ladies Dancing and that sort of thing. And the idea is to come out to Disneyland and see our spectacular tree with our celebration of the 12 Days of Christmas. If I remember correctly, part of the pitch was that they'd started on December 1st, and they...
Wait, Christmas starts in December?
Well...
Hold on, James. Let me reacquaint you with the Disney calendar.
There we go. The idea was that each day to unveil a different show scene so that
Oh, got it. Okay,
by
yeah.
the December 13th, all the scenes were open. And
Like
then-
an advent calendar, but for in a
There
theme
we go.
park.
There we
Okay,
go.
all right, got
and
it.
then the full version was available for visitors to the park during the holiday season.
All right, but this never gets built either, right?
No.
Although the idea of giant Christmas tree beckoning people into the park is something that we see to this day, right?
That
I
we
mean, this
do.
is
That
basically
we do.
Epcot in.
Yep.
All right, let's go to the next one. All right, so this is one of the original pieces of concept art for the Magic Kingdom Castle. This is standing over by Liberty Square or Adventureland Bridge, looking into the castle. The couple things I like about this. One is it's a pretty decent representation of the view that you get if you stand there. I think it's notable for that. The scale is good. The architecture is good. I mean, we all basically know where we are. The thing that kills me on this one is that there are actually trees in this view.
Yeah.
And there aren't trees anymore, but it's a good representation of the castle, right?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so now we're transitioning into Magic Kingdom concept art. Let's go. Next one. You've never seen this, because I know this is Buzz's.
No. This is Chinatown. This is actually where, if Walt had had his way, you're looking at the entrance to the Chinese restaurant where you were supposed to go in and they were going to do the Confucius show. The one reason this show never got built is in the early days of animatronic, they couldn't find a plastic that, when they put it on the animatronic figures and would run it through the show cycles, just 5 or 10 cycles through, it'd start to grow slack.
Oh, because it's under hot show lights and it's being
Yeah,
manipulated.
and
Okay,
so it's
all right.
like it goes from, wow, that's a great human likeness, to horrifying robot.
Here's what I find interesting about this drawing. If you think about Main Street in Disneyland, we all know that the first floor is full scale and the second floor is 5/8 or 7/8 scale, right? But in this one, the second floor is full scale, and you know that because there are people on the second floor of this Main Street in the center of the drawing. Was the idea that when they built the Main Street in the Magic Kingdom, was the idea that it would be much bigger than that in Disneyland? So I guess my question is, why are there people on the second floor here?
Because it was, in fact, going to be a sit-down restaurant. This is recessed off of Main Street.
Okay, so Main Street could have its regular scale, then the same as Disneyland, but you push the stuff off in an alley, and then you could change the scale.
Yeah.
Oh.
If you look, they even use the forced perspective, foreshortening.
Oh, right,
on the
on
roof
the-
pieces to sell,
Okay,
the
all right.
artificial height.
All right, let's move on. James?
Oh, all right. The sad part of it is this actually got made, Len.
It did get made, yes.
This is the watering hole that was supposed to be one of the big elements of the Africa Pavilion for Epcot.
Oh, was it really? Okay, so I have this out of order then. I didn't know what it was.
They actually went to an animal park in San Diego with 70-millimeter cameras, shot the actual live footage of animals coming at night to the watering hole. And what they were going to do is that you walked into this tree that had a treehouse in it. You looked down into this water hole scene, and you could stand there, and as your eyes adjusted, they had this 5 to 10 minute cycle of film where animals came out of the jungle and drank at the pool, or left or were chased out by predators. And that's a thing about the Africa Pavilion. This was created. This was ready to go to drop into the pavilion had they actually built it.
The fact that you mentioned that it's Africa, I thought this was Adventureland, which is why I put it with the Magic Kingdom stuff. But
Okay.
there's a bunch of other art for Africa coming up. Okay, go ahead. Oh, there we go. This is Adventureland, definitely, because it's got elements of Jungle Cruise and other parts of Adventureland. You see the Asian-themed buildings. You see the snake coiled above the tree limb, which you see in the Jungle Cruise. You see the Jeeps. That was my guess.
Okay, but
So tell me what it was, James.
the giveaway, look in your lower right-hand corner there. What epic cinematic adventurer does that look like? It's Indiana Jones.
Oh.
Herbie, before we lost him, he was the first artist in on the Indiana Jones project.
Oh, is that what this is? That's okay. That was much later than I thought it was.
Yeah, and if you look just above in the tree there, snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Oh, got it.
But this was used as they continued through the project as kind of a taste of this is what we honestly want to try to do.
This is the theming. Of,
Yeah.
so this, okay. I thought this was Adventureland. All right. Let's go to the next.
Oh, and again, here we are back at Liberty Square, and
So this is original concept art for the Magic Kingdom's Liberty Square. And the reason why you notice is that the scale is much larger than in Disneyland or anything that they had done with Liberty Street.
they did in fact build a lot of this, but sort of toned it down. But ironically enough, that's a copy of Concord Bridge, and in fact, that only lasted, I want to say, 6 to 8 months.
Oh, this is the bridge going from the Central Hub to Liberty Square.
Yes, and parade floats would hit that and bottom out and not be able to move forward.
Oh, okay. So I've heard that story. So there's actually a boat here. Was that where the swan boats were before my time?
They always had boats in the moat, in the canal, that would loop out and do a runaround of the treehouse in Adventureland. They began to realize that, especially in front of the castle, they needed something a little bit more elegant, and that's why they defaulted from the sort of that. I mean, it almost looks like an early friendship boat there.
Yeah, but the scale on that I think is all wrong for Liberty Square because can you get a boat underneath that bridge between?
Well, again, you could when it arched over to the water like that,
At one time you could.
Yeah, but again, that's why they circled back on the swan boats at some point. So
I like the element of colonial period people walking around in the street as well. That's not a whole lot we see here, but basically an early version of Streetmosphere.
look, a Muppet. Okay.
Muppets would improve that. All right, go ahead. Here's another view of it, and this is definitely Liberty Square. You can tell because of the church steeple and also the riverboat in the distance. Actually, I think this is a fairly decent representation of what actually got built.
Yeah, and the other thing that's fascinating about the Liberty tree that still stands in the middle of Liberty Square, They searched all over property till they found a live oak that was big enough that could be the Liberty Tree. And the problem was, how do we get this giant thing to the park itself? And they actually invented this fascinating technique where they dug out the root ball and then they drilled straight through the tree and put these iron rods through the heart of the tree and then lifted it out and carried it to site. And then they removed the rods, filled it with this weird combination of antiseptic and sap, and the tree healed up. The weird thing is you go to Liberty Square and it was like, everybody else says, oh, look at the wonderful architecture. And there would be all these horticulturists hovering around the tree like, oh, wow, it's healing up nice.
Look at the trunk. Look at the trunk on this thing.
Yeah.
All right,
So,
one more. So I couldn't figure out where this was. It looks vaguely New Orleans Square, but it's definitely in with the Walt Disney World stuff.
well, when the pressure was suddenly on, we're getting all this guest reaction. We need to bring Pirates of the Caribbean here to Florida.
Right.
So they turned to Herbie and they're like, okay, if we were bringing Pirates there and this is the approximate piece of land and it's just down the street from the Tropical Serenade, what could we do? And he threw this together and everybody looked at it and it's like, that is just not going to work.
Right. It's like this weird combination of Spanish architecture and colonial America. It's like it could be either.
Think about it. You're walking past the Jungle Cruise and Tropical Serenade, the Tiki Bird show.
Sure.
So this is going to be on your left. This is your Pirates of the Caribbean building, and as you reach the bottom of the street, you're in Frontierland. So the progression of buildings is
so Pirates was going to be farther along.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that makes more sense then.
In the end, it was like, this is not going to work. We need a different take on it, and that's where the Spanish fort we have today came from.
Okay. So the thing I love about this is it's a great representation of the Liberty Bell riverboat and the way it looks in the Magic Kingdom. Now the perspective is wrong because you see on the in the distance on the left-hand side, you can see the castle, and I don't think there's a way in which the boat goes that navigates the rivers of America and you can see the castle that way. But it's a fantastic depiction of what the Liberty Bell riverboat looks like. Just think in terms of concept art, it's really, really good.
Well, at this point, this isn't actually the Liberty Bell we're looking at. This is the Richard F. Irvine.
Right.
I don't know how many of you know the story of Richard Irvine. He was basically Walt's good right hand at WED, and he was the one when Walt died who was basically put in charge of making Walt Disney World a reality. He basically worked himself to death on this project. In fact, 6 months out, Richard's wife was out with him for this part of the project, and Richard was late getting home. And it's like, where were you, Richard? And it's like, well, I was up at the site talking with Walt, and he's really upset because we're running behind schedule, and I don't know what I can do. And it's like, and she's looking at him like, you know Walt is dead, right? And she literally goes next door to Roy's house and gets a hold of Roy's wife, Edna, and it's like, I think something's wrong with Richard. And they get a doctor. Evidently, he was in really, really rough shape. And so they're like, all right, we'll put him on the Disney corporate jet. We'll get him back to the best possible doctors in Los Angeles. And that actually almost killed him because he was in a pressurized plane with a heart condition.
Yeah.
And the poor guy, he never came back on the job full-time after that.
Wow.
That's one of the reasons they named the steamboat after him, because he basically made this huge sacrifice to the company and never made it back.
All right. But it's a nice piece of concept art. I really like it in terms of setting atmosphere. Let's go to the next one.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think this is the final piece of Magic Kingdom concept art. The thing that I like about this is how evocative it is of the feel of Frontierland, especially around Splash Mountain and Big Thunder Mountain. You see the snakes, you see some lightning, but the color scheme, I think, is generally the color scheme that you see in Frontierland, at least when the paint is fresh in Frontierland. It's a nice piece of art. It's completely different than anything else in Herb Ryman's catalog that Buzz has.
This is what the train would have seen as it drove past Thunder Mesa. You can actually see a rattlesnake in the corner there. I mean, again, the color scheme, the American West. I mean, you're right. It's a wonderful, striking image. But again, this is supposed to be a vignette you see as you look out as the train passes around the park.
So this would have been a quick sketch just to give people an idea of what the feel of the land was going to be. It's not as detailed as anything else. Okay, so I think we move on to, this is the castle at night. The trees are the thing that I find intriguing about this, how many trees there were supposed to be, and apparently with lights in them. But the other thing is, just the quality of the coloring in the artwork is really amazing in person. It's just fantastic stuff.
The companion piece for this, which shows Disneyland at Christmas, it's actually upstairs at the Disneyland Hotel in the convention space. As you go up the stairs, rather than going into the convention space, you take the escalator upstairs. There's this wonderful hallway that's filled with these 6-foot tall, 9-foot wide canvases. And there's a Christmas one here that's sort of the sequel to this. It's just absolutely stunning. And next time you're in Anaheim, get out of the park for an hour, wander around the hotel. There's some great art.
You know, there's people in Disney archives going, here's the piece that we have. Where's the other one? I don't think anyone knows where it is. All right, let's go on to the next one. All right, so this is the classic Herb Ryman concept art for Epcot. Everyone's seen this, right? Beautiful piece of artwork. If there was a single picture that sort of captures what the concept of Epcot is supposed to be, this is it. You've got Spaceship Earth in the background. You've got the monorail. You've got the sun shining on you. This is a classic Herb Ryman. Apparently, Buzz had an original of this in his house. All right, fair enough. Let's go on.
Oh, that's Horizon.
It's Horizons.
Yeah.
Right.
Or Century 3000, I think it was called.
Horizons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm identifying this picture correctly, you can see a gentleman in the foreground who looks somewhat disreputable. Richard Schickel is the New York Times writer who wrote the Disney version, which he had supposedly been given authorization to get into the Disney archives and interview all sorts of people. And it was only about 3 or 4 months out from when the book got published that Disney learned that it was a hit job, that he really went negative about the thing. And Herbie got very upset about this thing.
Yeah.
And so what he did is that evidently in all of the Epcot paintings, you can find Richard Schickel doing some pretty horrible things in all of the, and it's one of these things where Herbie's technique is just smeary and vague enough that...
Could be anybody.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like, is that Richard Schickel in the background molesting a child? And it's like, only Disney staffers could oh yeah, it's that guy.
No,
Yeah.
no.
But again, he took it very personally because he had sat down with Richard and told him all these
Yeah.
wonderful stories about Walt that never made the book. So,
Oh, you mentioned that. That's interesting because there are some notes in these archives between Buzz and other people about apparently something came out in the early 80s or mid 80s about Walt being anti-Semitic. It's these notes from people in the Disney organization saying Walt was just standoffish. He didn't not like anyone. He loved people. And you're recounting these stories of how Walt didn't know what Hanukkah was, and once people explained to him what Hanukkah was, he's like, my God, let's have a Hanukkah party in Disneyland. But it would be for the staff, and it wouldn't be publicized. But it was all these individual notes that Buzz and the lawyers had collected to refute this, and it never got published because I think eventually it just died down. But their point was, look, he was just distant with people. But once he got to know you, he loved everyone.
all right, the book you're talking about is Mark Elliott's The Dark Prince.
So I didn't mention the book, but I saw the notes.
The Walt Disney Family Museum, Diane actually built that entire thing as a physical response to all of the smears that had turned up in Mark's book.
The other interesting thing in here, along with that, was this note, somebody asking Buzz to explain why in a company of as large as Disney's, they had 3 female engineers at the time. And this was 1975. And his answer was basically, we hire as many as we can get. It's the colleges not producing them at the time, which was an interesting perspective on it. And actually, I think that's kind of insightful for Buzz to say that at the time. He didn't go with, they're not qualified or anything like that. It's where colleges aren't producing them.
No.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Anyone?
Yeah.
Spaceship Earth. It's the
Yeah.
burning room scene
I
from
was about to
Spaceship
say,
Earth.
yeah.
Yes. I can smell the charcoal as I say this one. But this is, as far as I can tell, no one's ever seen this one. But it sort of captures the ambiance. You see the ashes, you see the flames, you see the Roman columns. I think this is, again, this is one of the things where the thing that they built matched the concept art pretty well.
You gotta love the stylization.
Oh, it's fantastic, isn't it? And the other thing, too, is the depth is the same depth in the photo. Let's go on to the next one.
And hey,
Okay, no one's seen this.
it's the Coco ride.
It's the Coco.
So,
This is very early concept art from the inside of the Mexico Pavilion. This is one of the originals that Buzz keeps. I think this is a fantastic rendering of what the Mexico Pavilion looks like for a couple reasons. Number one, it's architecturally accurate, right? I mean, this is pretty close to what you actually get. But to me, it captures the feel of that evening scene in Mexico, as well on paper as it is when you actually walk into it. And I think that's one of the great things about the interior of the Mexico Pavilion is just the atmosphere, just being in there. It feels really, really good. And I think they've done a great job of capturing that in this art.
Speaking of the Mexico Pavilion, we were just in last night to go to the La Cava. We had a wonderful tequila flight.
16 shots, but okay.
Live to tell the tale.
Flight.
But in the entrance area now, they have a wonderful cocoa. In fact, they're still loading it. There's a couple of windows that they haven't put the pieces in it. And I will tell you flat out, Nancy and I actually got to see it week before last. It is among Pixar's very best films. I have to tell you, on your way in, just grab a handful of Kleenex because you're going to go through all of them.
This isn't Toy Story 3, is it?
Oh, actually, the interesting thing, this is Lee Unkrich, the very same gentleman who directed Toy Story. In fact,
can we not just get a happy-go-lucky movie all the way through?
It's so funny.
A comedy would be lovely.
On my drive down here, I actually stopped on the Connecticut Turnpike and did an interview with Lee Unkrich and Darla Anderson. My first question is like, what's with the sad movies?
Yeah, right, exactly.
I got to go to one of the very first public screenings of Toy Story 3, and it was at CinemaCon.
Are they handing out Xanax as you go in? Like, here, you're gonna need this. Take this at intermission.
The funniest thing is, at CinemaCon, it's little, bald, squat men. They run cinemas, and they don't care about movies at all. They want to know how much popcorn and how much soda they're going to sell, all right? And so it's a theater full of these guys watching Toy Story. It's like, grumping, stupid cartoon. And I remember distinctly turning around during the last 5 minutes of Toy Story, and it's like this entire theater of little bald men weeping openly, and then the lights come up and everybody quickly mans up.
Something in my eye. Dust in this theater's horrible.
Man, that's going to sell a lot of popcorn. And so this is the exact same thing with Coco. I could tell you, just be ready, bring the Kleenex. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful film.
If you haven't been over to see Dia de los Muertos exhibit in the Mexico Pavilion, it really is well done.
No, I agree. Totally.
Let's move on one more. So this is another rendering of the Mexico Pavilion, but this is from the aspect of the San Angel Inn Restaurante. And I think, again, this is the Mexico Pavilion. It's a really good piece of concept art. You can see why Buzz has this in his personal collection too, right? It captures exactly what they built. The colors are just
vibrant, absolutely. Again, and when you think about, you look at this and there's so much detail, except when you walk up to it and the detail just blows out because that's Herbie's painting technique.
Oh, there's just so much complexity in his painting. I think that's what I like about it. So if I was going to go to jail for stealing something, it would be one of these paintings.
Okay, we're headed to the art.
Okay, let's go. All right, in Buzz's collection, there's this theme of American history going through it. So if you look at the stuff that he kept from Main Street, if you look at the stuff that he kept from Frontierland or Liberty Square or the old Liberty Street, he's fascinated with early American historical figures. And he keeps this collection of concept art in his house that Herb Ryman does of these characters. We're going to go through a few of them here. Obviously, this is concept art for Mark Twain for The American Adventure. And you can see his cigar there, which is prominent. And Mark Twain makes it into the final show, right? Let's move on. This is Ben Franklin, obviously a great portrait of Ben Franklin. There are two of them in this collection. I think this one is very good. Ben Franklin also makes it into the final of The American Adventure. Anyone? Will Rogers, right. So American humorist. He's got him there, I think, with the rope. Will Rogers also makes it into the final of The American Adventure.
But here's the thing. It was a trio of the hosts of the show. Ben Franklin was going to represent the colonial period.
Right.
Mark Twain was going to represent,
1800s.
And then for...
Will Rogers in the 1900s?
1900s.
Oh, I didn't know this.
That was how the show was written. In fact, one of the reasons that the Will Rogers figure shows up in the show at all is that they built it, and when they started play testing versions of The American Adventure for school kids and people and that sort of thing, nobody knew who Will Rogers was anymore. I mean, Will Rogers was a huge star in the 30s or thereabouts, and then, of course, unfortunately died with the plane crash up in Alaska with Wiley Post. And the thing is, if things had gone another way, Walt's first live-action animated film wouldn't have been Song of the South. It would have been Rip Van Winkle with Will Rogers starring as Rip Van Winkle. I mean, they were working on it when we lost him.
Never heard this story before. So Will Rogers was supposed to be the third host?
Third host.
Is there a script?
Yeah. When it became apparent that nobody knows who Will Rogers is, so this doesn't have any weight, so they did a final rewrite of the show where the host of the show was Ben Franklin, Mark Twain, and Walter Cronkite.
Wow. That would have been interesting.
But in the end, it was just sort of like, but he's still alive, right? You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
I can see the issue with that.
so no, they eventually just defaulted to, okay, we'll just make Twain and Ben Franklin our storytellers.
Because you could see that the script could have used a little bit of humor every once in a while.
Oh no, that's it exactly. Mm-hmm.
So this is Thomas Jefferson, I believe. Thomas Jefferson makes it into the final version of the American Adventure. Let's go to the next one. Paul Revere. Paul Revere does not make it into the final version of the American Adventure. What happened here, James?
Well, first of all, it looks like he's turning into a werewolf.
Okay. Maybe not the most flattering angle of
that
of
might
Paul
have
Revere
had something to do with it.
But the thing is like you go back to Liberty Street, right? And the Disney company wants to integrate Paul Revere into the theme parks, right? They've got the Silversmith shop, right? They've got the whole Ride of the Paul Revere. I mean, the Muppets are even talking about Paul Revere. Disney likes the Paul Revere story. He doesn't make it in to the American Adventure. Why not?
My understanding was that they were looking at the figures they were going to build, they were looking at the moments they were going to hit upon, and it's like it came down to, do we keep Paul Revere and cut Susan B. Anthony?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Late 70s, early 80s, as they're writing the show, it's like, well, we have to be more respectful to the other aspects of history. And yes, every kid knows about the ride of Paul Revere, but at the same time, Susan B. Anthony played a huge role.
You got to do
and so
Susan B. Anthony, right?
he fell by the wayside, and she's in the show.
I think at some point, Disney got to look at the script and said, if we continue on with the current pace of how we're presenting history, this is going to be a 60-minute show. And that's why you get that little movie vignette with all the inventions that basically spans 70 years of American history. Well, it's like, la, 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 nothing happened here but the vacuum cleaner. All right, let's go to the next one. So this is a rendering of what the United States Pavilion, the American Adventure, was supposed to look like from the outside. I think they did a fantastic job on it. The classic Ryman sort of sun in the right-hand side angle is good, but that's World Showcase Lagoon there. This is a pretty good representation of the American Adventure. You don't see the sort of the American Gardens Theater on the riverfront, but you do see sort of a little bandstand area right there. That's a pretty decent representation of what we ended up with, right?
It was more of a thumbnail at that point, not the complex that we know today. It always makes me crazy that when Disney builds a new stage area these days, they build it open air. It's like, the Imagineers will spend the money they have, and then once we hand it over to the parks, let them worry about building a roof over it.
Exactly. What could possibly go wrong in Florida?
There we go.
Open air is the way it's at. Exactly. Go to the next one. So this was supposed to be the concept art for the end scene of the American Adventure, sort of the grand finale that brings everybody together, showing America as a melting pot. I think this is actually well done as well. It doesn't at all look like there's an atomic bomb blowing up in the distance there. It's not what that is intended to be. That's supposed to be the sun setting or rising. I can't tell. Let's go with rising there.
While this did not make it into
It did not.
the American Adventure, this artwork came out and was part of Disney's America. They were going to build an Ellis Island portion of that theme park in Virginia and tell the story of American immigration. And I've seen a version of this painting, only they're all Muppets. Because the Muppets will be the ones who tell the stories of American immigration. So
all right.
You had a Slavic piggy in there.
So I like this one. This is concept art for the Japan Pavilion. And you can see how there's actually a small red arch in World Showcase Lagoon in front of Japan right now. Originally, it was supposed to be much larger, the entrance gate. But you definitely see the pagoda in the back. So some elements got moved around and rescaled. You see World Showcase Lagoon in the foreground, but the basic elements are there. What you don't see, I think, on this one, it's not obvious. Number one, the department store, and number two, the formal gardens that are behind the pagoda are featured much more prominently in real life on this. So this was, I guess, one of the very earliest pieces of concept art for Japan, showing the basic elements.
Yeah, and you have to understand that during the early days on Epcot, they were desperate to get really for real attractions in, as opposed to every country kept circling back on a film show. In this iteration of the Japanese Pavilion for World Showcase, this was where they decided, okay, if we're going to do a film show, we're going to do a really cool film show. And so you stepped onto a bullet train and they rolled you through the Japanese countryside. And While Disney didn't build the idea, there was an Imagineer who left the company who remembered the idea, and that's pretty much what drives the Hogwarts Express these days.
Really?
Just enough movement to sell you that you're moving someplace, and a window that you looked out on that sold you were looking out onto an actual space. This being the 80s, it would have been a Sony Trinitron that weighed 1,200 pounds.
Giant CRT tube within.
There we go.
The other thing that this doesn't show is the Mitsukoshi department store. And I think this is one of those instances where the concept art was very clean and sparse and showing what the feel of the land was supposed to be. Then Roy comes in and says, we need $1 billion to build Epcot. Let's throw a department store in there and get some sponsors. And that's how we end up with a department store.
Pretty much.
All right, let's go to the next one.
Oh, yes, and here we are back in Africa.
So you mentioned Africa before, and I got it out of order because I didn't understand it. But this is some concept art for the Africa Pavilion.
Well, you can see in this shot that on the left there, the tree with the treehouse effect, that balcony space is where you're standing to look down into the tree trunk, and that's where the water hole scene, the concept art that you were talking about.
So I missed that.
Yep.
And this is some sort of festival? What's going on here?
Actually, the thing of the African Pavilion at Epcot it was that it was going to have a huge music and dance component. You're looking at an African dance troupe that would come out and perform in the streets. I want to say directly behind them is the show building for Cycle of the Drum, which the way I've had it explained to me is it was like the tiki room, only instead of birds, they were drums.
That's what that ride needs.
There we
Drums.
go. So. Oh, God, and there it is. Okay.
Oh, so that's what that is. There you go.
Yeah, you are sitting in a space surrounded by all these ornamental African drums that each would play a different light color would go off from within it. And so as the show built and the wall of sound and the rhythms, you're surrounded by all this amazing percussion and this beautiful light, and then it would just go quiet, go dark. Talking about the heartbeat of Africa. The downside was when it came time to build it, the only people who had the money and were willing to come forward were South Africa.
Yeah, this was back in the 80s?
Yeah, during apartheid. And every so often,
Keep your money.
It's like, no, we can't do business
can't
with
do
you.
it. Yeah.
So.
All right, so this is concept art from Oriental Disneyland, and I don't know how much of this got built, but it's very 1964 World's Fair to me.
Mm-hmm. When they're working on Oriental Disneyland, this is post Walt Disney World, and this is also as they're beginning work on Epcot. So that weird sort of rectangular thing in the middle of the thing there, that's their first try at a covered Main Street. Only instead of walking through Main Street America, if you went inside the space, it was like you were in the Contemporary Hotel at Walt Disney World. It's this sleek, futuristic, circa 1970s space. It's clean, it's neat, it has great shops, and it's all undercover. So when it rained, as it does in Japan, you had a place to go and hang out.
All right, we have a couple more pieces of this art. I thought this was a Main Street?
Well, you remember how plain Jane and horrible and square and angular the last piece was. When they showed it to the Orlando executives, it's just like it's square, it's plain. And so they defaulted to taking the Crystal Palace idea, and instead of a futuristic, let's go with the Main Street, but we will cover it with glass. And the Imagineers to this day believe that it is the worst idea that they ever. Anybody who's traveled to that park and who gets in that space, all of the sound reverberates down. Yeah. It's needlessly loud and honestly not terribly attractive to look at.
And this is also Oriental Disneyland. This was very Epcot to me.
This is Disney constantly trying to, we did all this development, we did all of this work. Don't you want an international section? Because this is where you enter that square building we saw previously. In fact, you can see the edges past the flags and that sort of thing. But this establishes that when you walk into the space, it's not Main Street America themed, it's internationally themed. So you would have shops and restaurants that you could sample going around the world, but there'd be enough Disney stuff, and then as you walked out the other end, there's the castle.
No, this didn't get built.
Disney made assumptions going in that if we build Main Street USA, that's not going to resonate with the Japanese because they don't know Main Street USA. But If we built them a mini Epcot that they could enter through that had different building styles and food and that sort of
Right.
thing, it's like, oh, that would resonate with them. But they showed it to the Orlando Land executives and they rejected it outright. Like, no, we want Main Street.
All right, this is clearly Tomorrowland with Space Mountain in the background. The thing that I love about this is it's basically, it feels to me like Star Wars with the, it's got a great feel in it. Do we have one more? Oh, yeah, this one I couldn't figure out. Again, Oriental Disneyland. It looks like that's a Jungle Cruise boat on the right-hand side, but what's the glass bridge?
Remember, Disney World had done the swan boats of the Magic Kingdom. And the gimmick with the swan boats was that they would go around the hub and then they would zip down to the Adventureland tree. And
Okay.
that didn't necessarily work.
No, they were gone within a few years, right?
But on the other hand, the Imagineers loved the idea. And it was just sort of the notion of, well, if the swan boats didn't work, wouldn't it be cool to include as part of your Magic Kingdom Jungle Cruise moment? They finished their visit by coming out to the hub and just viewing the castle and that sort of thing, and then circling back to the offload area.
Oh, so this is the turnaround.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, you can actually sort of see the suggestion that would go under the bridge, and then you've got just sort of the hint of the sort of Schweitzer Falls thing going on.
Schweitzer? We're going to do that tonight, James.
Okay. there we
Save
go.
that joke.
Okay.
All right. So, James, first of all, you hadn't seen any of those slides before. 2 hours of talking about them. Very good. Let's applaud James. That was really impressive. I'm very impressed at that.
I'm talking myself into a coma at this point.
All right, folks, you've been listening to another episode of the Disney Dish podcast. We are produced fabulously by Aaron Adams. Please go on to iTunes and Stitcher and the bathroom walls over there and rate our show and tell us what you would like to hear next. A big thanks out again to Storybook Destinations for hosting this event. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.